Permit me to introduce this man. His name is Mr. Kicks. He dwells in a doctor.
Well, it's great to see you. I'm looking forward to getting into Oscar with Love, and everything that's been going on since we spoke last during the pandemic. So thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah.
So let's begin with that, with the pandemic. And just for context, we literally interviewed in February before all of it happened, and then got back together in May when it was really going crazy. We didn't know how long it was going to go. So, with that being said, how did you end up making it through that time period, and how has it influenced the way that you create and do things today?
Oh my God.
Sorry to do that to you.
Um, yeah, I don't know how I got through it. I just don't, you
Yeah,
know. Um, it was very painful. It was very difficult. I was by myself, and that was not fun.
yeah,
So, I I just well, it was hard too because it was the first time in years that I had chosen to do a recording and release it and do all the things, to get it on the air and all that. And I had released it in January of 2020. So I had all these grand expectations of what it was going to be like. And then it just died. And I think I had to readjust my own expectations because I had no idea,
yeah.
what was going to happen or what the world was going to look like when we got out of it. And I guess one of the things is that I didn't take my my friendships, my relationships for granted,
Yeah.
you know. That was one thing. Um, and what it did do was I'd known my producer Mark Cargill for years and Pure Imagination, which is what we were talking about, right? At that point, Mark had produced only three of the tunes on that album, but ultimately he did the final mix and mastering for the album. And we'd known each other for many years, and he was one of the people that just kind of kept me going during that time. And he found a way to creatively do a Christmas album, So we honestly, I've never disclosed this, but I'll disclose it now. He'll probably kill me. But we had to, everybody had to record their part for the Christmas album, The Gathering, remotely. And then he had to put it together um, in a really special kind of a way so that we had a Christmas album that we could put out while everybody was, isolated. And ironically, it was because we had talked about it before the pandemic started, but the the Christmas song that he had written was called The Gathering. So,
Huh.
but he encouraged me to write lyrics for that song, and I'd started before the pandemic, but then um I finished the lyrics during the pandemic, and so the title track of the Christmas album, The Gathering, became aspirational. So, um what I found is it appears, at least I can only speak from my own perspective. Um it appears that venues aren't so interested in jazz, traditional jazz, with the pandemic and what it's done to, the bottom line for venues. I've noticed that a lot of places are more interested in doing tribute bands and that sort of thing and stepping away from jazz. So I haven't booked as much as I had hoped.
Yeah.
Um, and yet I'm bound and determined to keep going.
I know that's right.
So I guess that's my really long answer to the
Yeah.
question. The pandemic was just, I don't know how any of us fully ever recover from that
Yeah.
time. I just I don't. I mean, it's things like, I'm fortunate enough to live in a place where, I have an outdoor space. And during the pandemic, I was in that outdoor space every day unless it was raining.
Yeah.
And I look at it now, and of course it's, the peak of summer, and I should be outside, right? But I go out there and all I can remember, even if it's sometimes I think it's subconscious because I go outside and I get really sad,
Yep.
right? And it's the muscle memory of sitting in that same place for hours and days at a time with nobody around.
Yep. The one thing too about coming out of that time period is I kept thinking, if we can just get out of this, it's going to be okay. And then I look at what's happened to America since especially the beginning of the year, and
Yes.
I realize how much the arts and music is going to save our souls. It's going to give people a level of comfort from the headlines of all of this clownery that we have going on around us. How much of the music with the Oscar album and in general are you thinking about giving people comfort during this time that we need it so much?
Um, oh my goodness. Well, it's a perfect question because I think one of the things about this particular album is that Oscar's music is both timely and timeless.
Yep.
And um Oscar was many things, and he was a philosopher, and he definitely made social commentary. And I think he was great about like discussing the entire spectrum of the human condition. And so I feel like the songs that I picked definitely do that. Um, because it talks about birth, it goes from birth to death, right? And I think it addresses everyone's humanity. And I also feel like the song Brown Baby in particular, I had released it, I don't know if you remember, but it's on Pure Imagination,
Yeah.
but I asked Mark that if we could reorchestrate it because in this time, the term brown baby, just for people who don't know the song, Brown Baby was a lullaby that Oscar Brown Jr. wrote for his children. And it may have been for his oldest son, I'm not entirely sure, but it was written during the civil rights era for sure. And it was his hopes and his dreams for his children as they grew up. And now, with all of the things that are going on with regard to immigration and that sort of thing, the term brown baby has taken on a different meaning or a broader meaning.
Yeah.
And so, I'm hoping that, you know, that song in particular and the album broadly give people a sense of hope, insight, and comfort that they're not alone and that they're not crazy.
Yeah. And we need that more than ever.
Yeah.
So, how did you land on doing this tribute to Oscar Brown Jr.? What was it that impelled you to finally to do this, to make this a reality?
Well, that's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
I honestly, I've recorded several of his songs in the past.
Yeah.
Um, but I knew the moment would come because I knew Oscar. And I got to know him toward the end of his life, like the last couple of years of his life. But I had met him several times before that. But I always thought that he deserved more elevation and visibility than he'd had. So, um, his centennial is October 10th of this year, and it just seemed like the perfect time to do what I could to acknowledge and celebrate him.
So how did you land on the songs? How did you land on the feel? How did you go about orchestrating the vibe and the feel?
That was tough because Oscar's written hundreds of songs, but I think what I did basically was there were songs that I knew people would remember and want to hear. And so I started with those. And there were some I chose not to do. Um, and then there were others that I thought, well, I have to do Afro Blue, right? So it was Afro Blue work song. Um, those were two obvious ones. The others were songs, for the most part, that had personal meaning to me. The Snake had to go on the album because it's the very first song of his that I ever recall hearing. And the album is a dedication to my mom, who's still alive. Um, and she was the person who we were in the car with her and we were young and the song was very old at the time. And she made us, my sisters and me, she made us stop what we were doing to listen to the song. And I listened to the words, I fell in love with it. And I loved the cautionary tale of it. So, I just felt like I needed to have that song on the radio. I mean, on the radio. I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted.
You're fine.
Sorry.
You're good.
Okay, good. Um, anyway, um, that song solidified who Oscar was for me. And I was like 13 or something when I heard the song, and the song had been out, maybe before I was born. I don't know, but it at least very, very small. And so as I matured and I started doing my own material, I started um doing my own shows, then I started digging into his things. And so Hazel's Hips was another one of those songs, and it actually was the very first song of his that I ever performed. And then the rest of them, just kind of the same thing. They're like my personal favorites. Somebody else might say, "Oh, well, what about That Dare?" Yeah, That Dare's a great song, but it wasn't what I chose for me. Um, and then A Tree in Me was a song that I wanted to record because I loved that he in several songs talked about the end of life, right? And so this one just it was so thoughtful in everything that it said about what he wanted done with his remains, right? And at the same time finding a way to live beyond this physical body. And the song was particularly moving to me. The other song that might be a surprise to people that I chose was Ladies Man, which again was one of those songs that it had been out for some time and I'd hit my early teens and my mother was having a listening party, which she did a lot of those. And someone played the song, and I'm just at that point where I'm starting to think about dating and whatever. And so that song was really alluring to me, and it was a cautionary tale all at the same time, kind of like The Snake, in a different kind of a way. But I knew, because it really is the perspective of a ladies' man. And I knew that I couldn't do that song by myself. So, but I couldn't leave it off of the album. So what I chose to do was invite Adam A.J. Jackson to do the majority of the song, and I kind of, you know, I I I jump in at certain points. So those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head that were just, top of mind. Oh yeah, um, more about Hazel's Hips. I loved the song and it resonated with me because my grandparents had a diner in New York. And my father had told me a lot of stories about the diner and who would come in. It was down the street from where Duke Ellington lived. So he was a regular, you know. Billy Strayhorn came in. Lena Horne was in there. Diane Carroll as a young woman. And these two gentlemen you may not ever have heard of. One was Harry Belafonte, and the other was his buddy Sidney Poitier. And Sidney was a young actor, and he he fell in love with my oldest aunt. And the whole family worked in the restaurant, and my aunt was going to school at Bonnard at the time. And they started dating, and they were engaged. And the end of that story is my grandmother put an end to it because she didn't want my aunt to be supporting a starving actor. But their romance started in the restaurant. And so the song about the waitress and singing the song from like a third person perspective just seemed like a good match for me.
Yeah.
Um, Another one that I was fascinated by is the song Strong Man, which Oscar wrote for Abby Lincoln. And she asked him to write something that depicted the men she knew because she felt like some of the songs, like My Man, if you ever listen to the verse of My Man, you know, before the song starts, she's talking about he beats me too and all that. And she said, I don't want that. I want a song about the men I know who are strong men, you know. And so Oscar wrote Strong Man for her. And it shows a lot about Oscar's insight into the human condition to even be able to write a song from a woman's perspective on, you know, how she feels about a man she loves.
So, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album, from your interpretation of his work?
Well, oh, one more thing.
Yeah,
Um, the person who's really instrumental, pardon the pun, in really helping me bring my voice to all of these songs is my producer Mark Cargill, who's an
yeah.
amazing string arranger and all of that. And you know, he came up with some of these concepts, and I love everything that he put together to help me. Um, what I'm hoping is that um people get to see another dimension of me.
Yeah.
Um, and and that they also get to see Oscar, people who never knew about him. I hope that they honor him and who he was and what his artistry was. And those who remember him um, get an opportunity to remember him in a new way and hear my expression of what he created and enjoy it.
So, it's going to be streaming everywhere, but if anybody wants to get a copy, they want to catch you live, anything else going on in your world, where's the best place to go?
So the best place to go is to go to amberweeks.com where
Okay.
all of my information is. But I am going to be streaming the full album on all of the platforms. And in fact, they're already, as of today, there are two singles out from the album if they want to hear it now.
Yeah.
So there's the single for Work Song that came out today, and I think 2 weeks ago, Afro Blue came out. But
Okay.
you know, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube, all, you know, anything else, it's there.
Okay, I will put links in the show notes. Amber, you have no idea how wonderful it is to see you in true living color and to be able to actually have this interview after all the times we spent during that pandemic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Best of luck on this release.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Neon Jazz.